How's your day been, Sean? I see you had a We Make Footballers slash. Which
Yeah,
brand is it this afternoon?
yeah, it was a epic day to be fair. I mean, to really explain this really fast, for the last 6 months, I've been organising these pop-up under six events all across London. I've done eight of them. I mean, myself and our team, with Women Footballers, hosted these events. They were advertised through social media. We worked with about 600 players all across London, and then we picked eight. Nah, that's too noisy. Come on, you're killing us.
Mute it, Matt. Mute yours. Go on.
Yeah. So anyway, so then yeah, like eight of these events. The top 10 players from each event, we then invited to a final event, which was today at Chelsea Training Ground at Cobham. And then all the kids played against each other. They did 1v1s, did that for like about half an hour in the pouring rain. Kids showed great character. And then the kids who won the most 1v1s, they got moved up onto these like four pitches. And then we went into little 3v3s off the back of that. Yeah, and it was just, yeah, it was a wicked event. The standard was like incredible. So good for under sixes.
So looking for the next batch for pre-academy players.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So like there's quite a lot that are already in with Chelsea. Like they've been scouted through the program. There was some that we missed and I was able to see them today. And then it was all recorded as well. So I'm gonna watch back all the recordings with a few of the senior scouts and then they can then double check my judgment. And yeah, I think it's been a really good program. I think it's very, you can tell it's very efficient. Like we're really like, you know, it's a very very efficient way to scout through events. Like in the past, you would have to send scouts to all these like Sunday games to see kids, and then you're sort of doing it more when they're under sevens because that's the earliest they can start teams, and so then it's quite late in the process. Whereas like with this way of scouting, you're catching them very very early, and yeah, it's a very like methodical way of scouting.
Do you think that's the future of scouting then?
uh, for me, yeah, I do. That's my like vision for it. I kind of need to sell the idea a bit more to get more people to understand it because some people maybe think like, oh, it's a bit early to scout, but I think that I think children, you need to work with them early. I think, their brains, from what I understand and what I've been told, the children's brains at a younger age are more susceptible to learning, especially with like technique. So it's better to get them in a good environment sooner, so you can really like develop those habits before maybe like it gets too late. And then yeah, the brain starts to want to become like mold itself and say, right, okay, these are the tools I need to be the person I'm going to be. And from the age of 12, like their sleep changes, they start having NREM sleep more than REM sleep, and then yeah, then it's a lot harder to build habits from that. But I think like some of this, I mean, just because we're talking about this event and we're talking about under sixes, but it is the topic of our discussion today, the focus of our conversation, and we'll probably get time to have some questions from parents towards the end of the conversation. But definitely in terms of like opening with a theme, I wanted to sort of have the conversation around, if you don't get signed under nine, what are your chances of being a professional footballer? I think it's quite a good subject, because I know it causes a lot of debate online. So, and I have my view on it. So, yeah, I mean, Dan, if I put that question to you, what do you think about that as a subject?
I see it from both points of view in terms of you're going to get a lot of the parents that are going to say there's the exception, someone that signed at under 13, someone that signed at under 15s. However, and the stats don't lie, I think you put it up, and there was something in the Athletic as well, just about player development and players that have reached first team from Championship and the Premier League that have been with academies from under nines, and it was close to like 82% of players that, and this was the Championship and the Premier League, that have been with clubs from sort of under nines. And I just think if your child isn't at an academy at the moment, obviously there's still opportunities. But the later you leave it, the more time you're away from the academy environment each year, it's going to get more and more difficult. So yeah, if your child's not in an academy now, there's still opportunities. They've still got potential. There's still sort of scouts, head of recruitments that will know the best players around that aren't at academies. But it is just more and more difficult the older you get, I believe. So if you're able to get into an academy as early as possible, so from pre-academy, and you sign at an under 9, I just think it just sets a great foundation, and you're just developing from the earliest stage.
Do you think though we'll see maybe a slight shift in like the stats and the data and everything now is based on what's happened over the last 10 to 15 years, right? So with what I think is maybe a little bit of a change in culture of grassroots football becoming much more professionalized and coaches getting involved, like really good coaches getting involved in the grassroots game, do you think there'll be more of a shift of players can now access academy level coaching facilities and everything else outside of academies? So
I think it's going to be higher. I think it's going to be the reverse
Really?
effect, if I'm being honest.
Really?
Because I just think now, the last 5 years, 3 to 5 years, I think clubs now, and even lower down, sort of Cat 2s and Cat 3s, are just on it even more. And it's just filtering down. So obviously you want to be at a Cat 1 in London, Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham. You want to be at the best clubs. And then what's going to happen? They have them from under 9s, and they just filter down. Those that are released will move down to Cat 2s. And I honestly feel it's going to be a higher stat within the next few years, because the clubs now understand the importance of getting the best in your area earlier. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, because I'm picking up what you're saying, Matthew, where you're saying that grassroots is getting more professionalized, and fair enough, it might be getting a bit better, where there's more. We talked about it last week. More clubs are. It's coming away from where it was like a voluntary thing, where there's sort of like businesses that are set up as these clubs. So you're kind of like saying that is the professionalizing of the process, but it's not meaning that like these grassroots clubs are having anywhere near the type of facilities that are there at professional academies, and the gaps are getting bigger in terms of like if we think how like academies are all competing with each other to have the best possible program so that they can recruit the best talent, because ultimately with genetics and the parents and what they can give, that's a big way for like what's going to make that player a player. And so then ultimately the clubs, the Cat 1 clubs, all the clubs will compete for these like specimens and these sort of these who they think are like the kids that they want to bet on, and then they want to have like, and it's not just about like having such a great program so their players develop in their stable, as it's often referred to, but it's also about like putting on such a good program that you don't want to go to Arsenal, you don't want to go to Tottenham. So that they're all competing, and that's just, and they've got money, they've got the money to keep investing. And like, in terms of like when the boards of these professional clubs are looking at their profit and loss reports and they're saying, oh, we just sold Lewis Hall to Newcastle and we made 30 million profit, and there's no expenses off that, that's pure 30 million, it makes their life a lot easier off the FP. So then it's like, well, yeah, great, we're definitely going to reinvest in that academy. Yeah, let's do more with that. It's brilliant business for us. Like, if we look at the club as a whole, we're making so much money off our academies, and that will be a way that a lot of the boards will think. And yeah, they're going to keep reinvesting in their academies, and they're going to keep getting better and better. So the academies are going to have more and more resources. When we've talked about like artificial intelligence, video analysis, nutritionists, sport strength and conditioning coaches, just all of these resources that grassroots clubs can't compete with.
Then
Sorry, Sean, there's gone.
No, I was going to say, so that's exactly what I was going to say. It's nice that you ended on that comment. Grassroots clubs can't compete with. So, I mean, how definite is that statement? Like, is that it? If you're not signed by under 9, just play football to enjoy it? Right.
Well, no, on that point, sorry, one of the comments here was agree with your view, Dan, but the challenge I find is that clubs tend to take just the athletics ones at the younger age. What's your view on the players who are more intelligent, like KDB type player? And my thing with that is, at pre-academy, foundation phase, the athletic ones stand out. It's when you get to the development phase and once they're reaching puberty and how do their bodies react after puberty, I think now you will find the stats will show that older players will get spotted a lot more, I feel. Because whereas before you'd get, once you're over, I'd say sort of 14 years old, it's very difficult for you. However, the heads of recruitment, the scouts, they know the players that physically may not be at the academy level, but they've got psychologically, or they're seeing things 2 steps ahead. So I definitely think with the older players, there are a lot more opportunities for you to stand out rather than at a foundation and pre-academy phase where it's the athletes that will stand out because, yeah, that's just how I've found it. What do you think, Sean, as you obviously see a lot more pre-academy players? What makes them stand out?
I mean, I would like to challenge that parent's point, but I don't know. Matthew, were you about to say something?
No, it's more on what I mentioned before, like how because there's definitely, like, we'll all agree, there's definitely a shift in grassroots football in terms of the standard of coaching, facilities, the seriousness of it. So, you know, it is getting better. So you'd like to think that it's gonna, the results are going to be more positive, and there's going to be more players coming, making it professional through the grassroots system. Because if you're saying that the academy system is just getting so much better, then well, where does that leave the grassroots game?
Well, okay, I'll put a pin in that, and then we'll come back to that point in a sec. But just to come back to that parent who said it's just the athletic players who are scouted. Is that what they said? What's their exact wording?
That will get noticed. They stand out more. The athletic players stand out more at a younger age.
But don't the athletic players, if you've got more of an athletic profile, don't you stand out every level? Like Mbappe stands out because he has athletic profile.
Yeah, I think their point, and they can put a comment there, but you'll always get the players that can't move as well or aren't as strong or as fast. However, they can see a pass, or technically they're very good or they're weak, but they're not animals in the session. And I've found sort of when Theo was pre-academy, you would always get the players that were a lot more physical, faster, that would definitely stand out. And the players that were short and sharp or could see a pass wouldn't, but you'd know in a few years' time or a couple of years' time, they'll come into their own. And I think with that, the coaches see that as well. They're not going to select a squad of players that are just rapid and strong, because they understand there's a mixture of players and they'll see talent. They'll see someone that can see a pass or someone that can receive on a half term instead of just the quickest players or the strongest players.
And on the other end of the spectrum, because I've just been at this event today with 80 under 6 players, and there was a ton of players. I mean, there was one dad that like had a go at me. He was just like, "You're wrong. I can't believe you're not picking my boy." Like, you know, he was upset with me. But like, and actually, I'm not going to speak about his boy, but you can get kids who are super athletic, like really, like unbelievably athletic, but just so raw technically and so raw with their game intelligence, they're not ready to come into a pre-academy program at that time, because they can't touch the ball the right way, and they don't really understand how to play the game. They can't connect with other players. They are literally just athletic. So those players are not getting scouted. So I don't know if there's a little bit of a misconception with parents who say that sort of attitude of like, oh yeah, it's just the athletic ones. The top players almost, they've got it all. They've got an athletic advantage, but they also touch the ball beautifully. Their step overs are amazing. Their skills on the ball, like it's like you are looking for everything. If you can get it all, that's great. Then you know, it's the other ones. It's like, all right, this player is they're not strong. I mean, there was a few ones. There was kids who won awards today because we picked 10 out of the 80 kids that were there that were like the Fun Flair Festival Player of the Day. Like they won the whole competition. And if you look at the photo, it's like there's a load of short kids on there. There's tall kids. There's all different shapes. So it's quite varied.
And
what scouts look for.
I do think a lot of parents, and it might be hard to accept it, because you're always, as a parent, going to say the club is wrong, or a scout is wrong, or the coach is wrong. But trust in the process, and understanding. There was one of the comments here that said clubs are lazy, and I don't look at all the players or something like that. The coaches and the scouts, the head of recruitment, have been there, done it so many times. So they know straight away. So as a parent, although you might think they've not noticed him or they've not seen this, that coaches just know it. And through their years of experience, and even with younger coaches, the younger coaches aren't making the decisions. They might put on the sessions. The scouts know a good player from somebody that needs a couple of years of development, to someone that is just raw and just doesn't have it. So as a parent, although you think the club might be lazy, or they've not seen something, or they've missed this player, yes, they might make mistakes and miss players, but clubs have seen so many players that they know what they want and what they don't want.
Exactly, Dan. And in response to the line, clubs are lazy, I mean, if they knew the pressure that scouts were under to find talent and not miss talent, I mean, I've just described today, like this event that we put on. I mean, it's 5 hours out in the rain, everyone just working their socks off to like recruit these kids. And we've spent 6 months of going all around London, working like whole teams of people trying to like look for the best under sixes. And we're all the scouts. I mean, this is just Chelsea, because we're fighting so hard to make sure that we can have an edge over our competition. We do not want to miss a player. One, because you feel pride in your work and you want to be in a high performer organization that is great at recruitment, and you're helping change families' lives. You're helping give these opportunities to kids. Like, that's just unbelievable. If you get a kid that you've scouted and they play Premier League, like, it's the best feeling. So scouts are super driven for that. But then on the other side of, like, if you don't keep getting players signed, you get released, you get chucked out. Football is ruthless. So, and then again, we do not want to lose to Arsenal. We don't want to lose to the other clubs, and they don't want to lose to us either.
And can I just say that, Sean?
Yeah,
sorry, and that's not even at pre-academy level. That is at every age group in terms of scouts. And obviously, Sean is Chelsea, Cat 1. I know QPR because that's where my son is at, and that's where I was for so long. So I understand sort of the Cat 1s, the Cat 2s, even the Cat 3s, and it's a competitive environment. So the coaches and the scouts are always trying to bring in better talent, because that's what they're judged on. So even as a parent, if your son or daughter does something good for 2 minutes of a game, like, a scout would have watched them for what they're doing in possession and out of possession. So although it's difficult as a parent for you to be like, oh, they've not seen this, that, yeah, you have to trust the process. Because I know at QPR, Lee McCart, the people that are in charge at QPR, the head of recruitment, the scouts, people that are in charge of scouts, they know every single player. And if there is a good player at Grassroots that isn't signed, it's not just going to be one club that are after him. There's going to be a few clubs that are after him to bring them in and see what they're like. So it is a competitive environment, and the scouts want players at every age group, because there are them examples.
And it comes through from like board level again. I know I've mentioned that a couple of times, but the academy director wants to stay in their job. So then if a player plays for Liverpool or Man City or whoever it's going to be, and then that board director, it's in the newspapers that your club dropped the ball, your club didn't sign that player when they had the chance. These are the ones that often get in the papers. They end up on all the football social media channels, and everyone starts trolling and saying, oh, why did our club miss this player? And then it comes down to the academy director. So academy director starts then going down the chain and goes to their head of recruitment and says, what are you doing? Why didn't you get this player? Like, you're not good at your job. And then it then goes down the chain below that. And then, that idea of scouts being lazy, I would strongly disagree with that. They're making effort. They are definitely making effort.
This is what parents don't, and I think this is why, whether you agree with what we have to say or not, this is why I think this platform is amazing, because it's educating parent, players and coaches that aren't in academy environments. And even just your experience being at Cat 1, similar what Chelsea offer, it's like, I'll learn some things, other people will learn, even if you're in an academy environment. So something like that, it's just letting parents know what happens behind the scene. And I also think, with regards to if your child is in an academy from an under-9, one of my good friends, his son has just signed, or is a scholar at a Cat 2 academy, and he has been at that club since pre-academy. There was only one other player that has been with him since pre-academy didn't get offered a scholarship this year, but the rest of them came from under 12s, under 14s, under 15s. So if you're at an academy, go on.
Oh, sorry, but I just want to check on that. What, you can't say what club that is at?
Yeah, I wouldn't say what club it's. Yeah,
Cat 1 though. Yeah.
So, no, it's a Cat 2. It's a Cat 2. Okay. But the other players. So my point was, the other players that are signed now, majority of them came from Cat 1 academies, from under 9s pre-academy, and filtered their way down. Because we spoke about this last week from your topic that you posted about, and when I was asking the dad about the other players, there were 2 players that have come from grassroots football, but the rest of them have come from Cat 1 and just filtered down, or Cat 2s and just been, but the majority of them were Cat 1s that filtered down. There's only 2 players that weren't at an academy from under 9s, and that's a Cat 2.
And sorry, Matt, I know you're jumping in. Hopefully your sound is sort of like all right now, but I mean, even like Jamie Vardy, like obviously that gets so much media attention because of like his journey, and he was playing non-league at the time that he then ended up becoming professional, but he was in academies from a young age. Like, you know, he jumped around different academies, like loads and loads. Like, the reality is, as hard as it is for parents to hear, and it is, you know, it's not that nice to hear this, but most footballers now, they are in academies, and they might jump between different academies, but they're starting academy football from under 9s upwards. The most do.
Can I say one thing, Sean?
Do. Yeah, of course.
One of the comments here is there such a difference in quality from Cat 1 to Cat 3? My biggest thing is, you just want to get into academy football, whether it's Cat 1, 2 or 3. There was some questions we used to get, and I get messaged, I've got a choice between signing for a Cat 3 or going on trial for a Cat 2 or going on trial for a Cat 1. Like, your job, if you're lucky enough for your son or daughter, or for your son for a Cat 1, 2 or 3, is if they can get into academy football, like, that's the biggest opportunity for them. So whereas some parents are like, I don't want him to sign for a Cat 3, I'm going to hold out for a Cat 2 or Cat 1, it's not that difficult. So the moment you get an opportunity, it's not that easy, to get into a Cat 1 or Cat 2. So if you're thinking, I'm going to hold off from this Cat 3 because I want a better level for my son, me personally, if there's an opportunity for you to get into an academy, so get into the system. That is my biggest thing. Whereas some parents are like, I want to hold off from a Cat 3. Like, there's so many examples of Cat 3s that have gone on to play. Yeah, everyone wants to play for City, United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, but you need to get your foot in the, someone's put it here, yeah, you need to get your foot in the door. So don't think you're too good for a Cat 3. There's thousands of players, young players that want to get into academy football. So if you have an opportunity to get into a Cat 3, I'd snap it up.
So what if we're in a position where players are under 9s, they haven't been signed? Is there this is something that I go on about a lot, like looking at the long term and trying to put a plan in place for the long term to make sure the player still fulfills their potential. And if they fulfill their potential, I believe they're going to find the right level of football for them. I mean, can we put together a bit of a logical blueprint as to what their next steps are? So you find the best grassroots club you can, but then are you aiming to get into a good non-league football at 16, 17, trying to get into like a first team squad of a good non-league? Or
if I can answer this one, please. So like I think of it as like categories of players, and we've kind of touched on it earlier in terms of like the spectrum that you're going to get. So let's say like the ideal player is like Jude Bellingham. Like Jamie Redknapp said it on one of our podcasts, like if you could make the perfect footballer, you'd kind of like make him, because he can do everything. Like he's got personality, athleticism, skill, like everything you could ask, football game intelligence. So from a recruitment point of view, at pre-academy, we're kind of looking for Jude Bellinghams, you know, but then you'll then go off, you know, you're not going to get a whole group of just Jude Bellinghams, like obviously. So then there's then like different examples, and then, all right, okay, so you're then going to have, like if players are super athletic, all right, well, are they good enough technically that you can sign them? Or if there's like a player that's super technical and clever, are they good enough athletically that you can sign them? And kind of then what happens under 9s, I think often, is it's kind of the leftovers, unfortunately, of the ones that clubs have probably decided that they don't want to gamble on. We said on a previous episode that it's predicted at the Cat 1 clubs that it's about £55,000 per year to develop a player. So if clubs think that the child is not worth that 55,000 gamble, then they'll be happy to leave them in grassroots, and hopefully they'll find their way. But understanding what your child is, if your child is this phrase like a technician, like, you know, non-athletic but super clever, super technical, then you need to make sure they are with unbelievable coaches in their grassroots environment. I think they should probably be playing in a suitable position, and you need to really have a good agreement with that grassroots coach that they're going to be playing a good style of football that's going to suit your child. If they're a centre midfielder, are you playing out from the back? Are they looking to play through your child, through the middle, so they're going to get loads of touches of the ball? And is the coach developing them in terms of like their football IQ, their movement to receive? You know, are they getting on half turns? Are you doing some individual work outside to develop their athleticism? So then, if they are that clever, as often is like said, oh, my child is so clever, but they're just not noticed by scouts. Well, just keep doubling down on that and make sure they're in a good environment with that. Be careful that they're not playing on really awful pitches. If you can go to a home ground where you're on like 3G, so that because that's going to be really necessary for them. And then on the other side of it, if your child is super athletic but so raw technically, like they literally struggle to control the ball, just spend a lot of time working on their first touch. Spend a lot of time on how they touch the ball softly. Really help them like watch football matches so they can improve their game intelligence. And I think that would be my advice to the players that don't get signed at under 9s, and try and keep in contact with some scouts, do some networking, and try every so often to nag a scout. You might have to nag a little bit. You might have to keep messaging and just being like, but do it politely. Don't be a pest, but just have a good relationship and try and say, look, you know, and you can send videos. You can use the app AI Scout. And yeah, like try and just put your child out there a bit. So every 6 months, as long as they are like progressing, they will also be seen. I think also another thing is make sure you're attending a lot of tournaments. For the younger ages, scouts scour the tournaments. Like I've already seen in the Chelsea WhatsApp group, our head regional scout, he's like putting out all spreadsheets with like maybe like 200 tournaments and delegating all the scouts to make sure that they go. So like their summers are full where they're all having to go to all these tournaments and not miss a player. So yeah, like the scouts are out there. If your child is at the level, then in theory they should get seen. That would be kind of be my response, Matthew.
I need to interrupt the podcast one more time. Did you know that We Make Footballers is a franchise business? We began franchising in 2015 and we now have over 60 franchises in operation across the UK, Dubai and US, serving over 10,000 players. If you are a talented coach but don't want to start your own coaching business alone, visit franchisewmf.com to find out how We Make Footballers can help you operate a successful football coaching company.
When you mentioned that the Chelsea scouts going to tournaments, what age group do they typically stop sort of scouting at tournaments?
I think it gets a lot less at under 13.
But that is that again, and obviously Chelsea have their model, which obviously works for them, and that might be the same for Cat 1 academies. However, I know Cat 2s, they do advanced centres. Sort of like development centers for up until under 15s. Like they are just looking for that one rough diamond. And in terms of scouts, getting into tournaments and trying to play for the best. I only know obviously London, the West London region, but London in terms of the amount of scouts, it's obviously going to be a bit different the further out you go. But as long as your son or daughter is at a good grassroots team, they're playing in a good league, scouts will go and scouts will know who the best teams are, who the good coaches are that are networking with the local clubs, who the best players are, and the older you get, the more difficult it is. So Sean's topic about do they need to, what's the topic again about under 9s? How did you word it?
What are the chances of becoming a professional footballer if you don't sign for an academy at under 9?
Yeah, so that topic is it's just a lot more difficult. There are going to be the exceptions and there are going to be the scouts that find that one player that hasn't been signed or someone that's been released from an academy, has gone into grassroots and then is still floating about. So there are definitely opportunities, but it's just very, very difficult. And you will get the scouts that sell the dream, or you will get the coaches that will sell the dream and we're going to watch you or we'll keep tabs on you for 6. And realistically, there's so many players, like the competition is very fierce. But if your son or daughter is good enough and is getting good, consistent coaching and playing games at a high level, grassroots, scouts will know. And if they are good enough, they will get invited in.
One thing I would say kind of as a caveat to what I've been talking about is like under 13s is such an important age with academy football. Under 13s and under 14s. When I watch those games, and I don't personally watch a lot of them anymore because my like job is to focus on pre-academy. But I remember like seeing those games and it's nuts because some kids are going to be like so tiny where they haven't gone through puberty yet. And then other ones are almost like grown-ups and they're all on the same pitch. And there's this sort of like craziness that happens as well where kids are not really like fully understanding their bodies at that time because they're working out, growing into these new bodies. There's like shifts of maybe if you're a lot smaller, you haven't started growing yet. Some of them maybe get like intimidated. Some kids are just bored of academy football by this stage. They've done like, I don't know, 9 years. I don't know how long. They've done it for so long, this intense training, and they just can't be bothered anymore. So they've just lost motivation. That can happen. So the grassroots players, the players on the outside that like can overtake, sometimes the gambles that clubs made on these under 8s, that they thought would progress a certain way and then they don't happen once they go 11-a-side, that can happen as well. So there's a bit of a merry-go-round that happens at under 13s and under 14s. So I would say that as well.
Yeah, Sean, I would, and I say to a lot of parents, there's 5 levels to making it professionally. And these levels are the age groups. Level 1, if you get an under 12 contract for 2 years. Level 2 is 14s to 16s. Level 3 is if you get a scholar. Level 4 is if you get your first year pro contract. And level 5 is once you get your second pro contract, then that's when it actually happens then. So in terms of them 5 stages, there's parents that think once they've got their scholar, they've made it, or once they've got their first year pro contract. Like, you have to get to them 5 stages in order for you to actually, you've got your second pro contract, now you're with the big boys. Those players that get their first year pro contracts are playing under 21s football. And another point that you said about the time that these players have spent in academy football, if Theo is 12 years old now, he started at pre-academy, 7 years old. If in 2 more years' time, like, he's done this routine 4 days a week for the last 7 years, like, players will naturally just switch off. I'll repeat them stages in 2 minutes. But yeah, the players will naturally they'll get bored of it. And a lot of the training is repetitive. Some parents that message me saying they find training boring because it's repetitive. That's what football has to be, because you have to repeat a technique and a skill to develop at it. But as a child, as a parent, you're going to get bored driving to the same place 4 times a week for 5, 6, 7 years. So imagine what the players are doing. And them stages, the levels. So level 1 is 12 to 14. You get a 2-year contract. Level 2 is 14 to 16, 2-year contract. Level 3 is when it really starts full-time football as a scholar. So 16 to 18. Level 4 is when you get your first year pro contract, and you'll probably be playing under 21s football. And level 5, the last one, is when you get your second pro contract, and now you're actually with the first team. Once you've completed them 5 levels, them 5 stages, you should be with the first team then. And that is the opportunity when it really starts. You're obviously going to get the odd player that, as a scholar or a first year pro, jumps into the first team and does really well. But for the majority of players at them stages, it really doesn't matter, because you could be a 15-year-old or 16-year-old, get scouted, and straight away you jump into stage 3. But if you've not had the foundation and the development from pre-academy foundation phase, you're jumping straight in at the deep end, because your body's not used to being in full-time football. Psychologically, how are you coping in that environment? Even little things, and this is what parents need to understand. There are players that haven't been in academy football, and then they sign as a scholar or go in as a trialist at an under 18s, and the littlest thing with them having to shower in front of all the other boys, they just don't like it. And it's being in that environment where a lot of parents and players may not understand this, but it's a routine for players. So they train, they eat, they gym, they shower, that's that. Whereas for a trialist that comes in and all of a sudden they've got to get changed in front of all of these players, it's a new environment, and they've got that in the back of their mind. They're on trial, and they don't want to get changed. And that's the smallest detail. If you're going on trial 16 to 18 years old, you're going for someone's full-time position. So it's so difficult at that stage. And that's only stage 3, 16 to 18, but you're in full-time football. The amount of injuries go up because your body isn't used to it. You're getting up stupid o'clock in the morning to get into training for 8:30 for breakfast. You're not finishing until 4:30. You're then doing full-time football and education. And this is from 16 years old. So these parents that are moaning and complaining about clubs at under 15, under 14, under 12 level, you've got such a long way to go.
I mean, a few of the things that you mentioned there, Dan, is what kind of gives me like hope and the drive as well to try and shift this this trend of being in an academy to make it pro. Because I think there are now a lot of incredible coaches in the grassroots scene that are very familiar with everything we're talking about and can now start creating those environments to help players really fulfill their potential and become pro. So then, is there an age where you potentially start looking at the dream of becoming a professional. Well, no, sorry. The dream is to become a professional. So is there like a stage where you say to the players and the parents and whoever, you know, the dream shouldn't necessarily be to sign at an academy and try and play for Chelsea, but it's, you know, let's be a little bit more pragmatic about it. Let's get into good non-league football, and let's think about actually going through that route. And, you know, the dream is to play professional football no matter what level. So accept that you're in the grassroots scene. Let's do everything we can to maximise that. And yeah, let's get in.
But in terms of like return on investment on time, Matthew, the sorts of money, like it's typical, what is it, like £700 a week if you're National League? £700.
I've got to be honest, and I don't think any parent and player wants to go through that non-league route. That is a last resort for players to make it to the pro game. But I think it's very realistic.
That's
what you're saying. But
if you're not an academy, then what choice have you got?
Yeah.
So you need. So the question is, if you really want to be a professional, if that's your dream to be a professional football player, you maybe not need to think about the dream of playing at Stamford Bridge. Like, the dream is to be a professional. So how can we go about achieving that dream?
But that's where I challenge parents, and like, as I've like learned all this in these last few years, where I've like really been like understanding the data and understanding it all, and also looking at the types of income levels and return on investment, then it's made me sort of want to just make people aware that, all right, be careful, because a lot of parents go all in. Like you're kind of saying, like, right, we want our kid to get to be a non-league footballer. And I mean, it could be a worthy achievement to be a non-league footballer if that's going to be the highest football.
Not necessarily non-league, it's the non-league route for them to play as high as they can.
But even that, like the percentages of people that go up from non-league to become professionals is still a tiny percentage. The majority of people that go in non-league, they stay around non-league. The majority of people, they'll stay at that level.
Yeah, so
they might jump up one league, but they're not jumping up like 5.
Yeah, no, to say they get to League 2 or National League, which is very similar now to League 2.
Right,
like,
so
they've made it as a full-time professional football player.
36 grand average wage in the National League.
Yeah.
36 grand, yeah?
Yeah.
Hard to live on that.
Yeah. But so that's what I'm saying. If that's the player's dream, then
But I'm saying like the player's dream, right? Let's all right, we're gonna be this non-league footballer, and this is gonna be the route, but let's also do all this, like give like tutoring, or I don't know, like I just think some parents go all in on just football, and that is so dangerous to do that, because I just don't know if that's I think for the amount of work you're putting in, you've been better off putting in your work.
So are you then? So you're then saying if they're not in academies, then that's it. You don't take it seriously.
Like if it's my kid, if my kid gets to like 13 and I can see that it's looking not easy for them, I'm gonna start guiding them just to play like if university football or something, or like you say, play non-league, but playing very much for fun. Like you're gonna play the highest level that you can play, but you're gonna learn about accounting, and you're gonna learn about business, and you're going to learn about everything else, because we need to make sure you've got enough tools to live in this world, because otherwise you're going to be a good non-league footballer, but life is still going to be very tough for you through your 20s.
I think this is where educating parents is so important, because parents have to understand, one, their child's ability, the likelihood of them getting scholarship, getting pro contracts. Two, what's the fallback option? Can you go to America, get a scholarship? Can you study? Can you go to private? If you get released under 13s, under 14s, a certain age in England, can you go to a private school on a scholarship? Like, there's so many opportunities. My one thing for parents is, if you've got the money, spend the money however you want, but financially, don't commit to making it pro if you're not at an academy by 16, 17. understand what's the next best thing for you. Is it going to be education? Is it going to be playing in non-league? But there's some parents that invest so much money in one-on-one coaching. I'm sending you to showcase games, and their child is 17, 18, not even at a good grassroots club. And that's where it's having that education and that support, because they're just seeing on a website, there's a showcase game, you pay £250, you're playing against all of these players, all of these scouts are there. Whereas realistically, yeah, it's not going to get you anywhere.
Sometimes, and by the way, I personally made this mistake myself. Like, I like when I was little, a coach there was like 10 of us. I might have been, I don't know, maybe like 8 years old at the time. And it's the coach, do you know Jack Patterson, Matthew?
I know Matt
Patterson's dad.
Yeah,
I know. So his dad. So I was at this training session. I wasn't even in the team at this under-8, but I was there for the training session. And then he said to us, "You all are good enough to be professional footballers." And me, the little 8-year-old, took that and I was like, I can be a professional footballer. And it proper stuck with me. And then I proper just set about being a professional footballer. And even at 15, still not in an academy, not even in a grassroots team, like a good grassroots team. And I was just, I will be a footballer. I'll be a footballer. And I got swept away with it because I didn't have another idea. I had no other direction. So I'm saying that maybe some people, because of what's pushed through the media, some people are out of ideas. Like they're just thinking, oh, what should I do with my life? Like, oh, I'll just be a footballer. Yeah. And that gives them some direction and a bit of hope. But it's kind of the wrong direction. There's so many other things to do in where you can achieve success and get a good money and good careers, and you can do loads of fun things. Chasing to become a footballer, sometimes I think that just falls on people's laps and it's what end up people pursuing, but it's the wrong option.
And someone's put a comment, even at 10, if they leave academy or get released, I'm presuming, what do you think would be the right path to take? And I remember about 6 months ago, we had this conversation, Sean, on one of the lives, maybe not that long ago. And my thing was, if your son or daughter gets released from an academy, I would always recommend playing at grassroots, letting them get their confidence back, being the star of the show, and just finding their way at that level so that they can stand out. And if they are still standing out once they're released, then they're meant to be at a higher level. The reason for that is because I feel there's so many parents, their son gets released from an academy, they then go on trial somewhere else. It doesn't work. Go on trial because there's these opportunities to go on trial once you're released from an academy, but they need to understand that the psychological damage that might be causing for the child. And just, I've been on courses for it, so that might be why I have an understanding about it. But, and Sean is completely opposite to what I was going to say, but my thing about, and I understand Sean's reason why you should go on trial, but if your son, and you need to know your son or daughter, what their personality is like, if they can take that rejection again, then that's fine. If they see it as a challenge, that's fine. However, a lot of these children that are going from being released to going on trial somewhere else, if they can't take that pressure and they're going to a new environment and they're nervous and anxious already, I just think if they went grassroots for 6 months, got their confidence back and was able to shine, then right, we're ready. So go on, Sean.
Yeah, I was just going to add that I think everyone needs to be really aware that football is very seductive. It's addictive. We all are obsessed with it. It's the most popular game in the world by far. We're all just so passionate about it. And when you're so passionate about something, you can make some bad decisions because you're proper following your heart. And I know there's so much rhetoric and things on social media say, follow your passion, follow your heart. Sometimes it might not be the best decision. So
and you as a parent, sorry, and this is, the parents want to go to another trial. The parents want to go to another club because they want their son or daughter to still make it or still be part of the academy environment. However, is your son or daughter ready to be put in that environment? How have they coped with being rejected, with being released from that environment that they've been in? Like, there's so many things that you have to think about and be a parent instead of being, and don't get me wrong, it will be Theo finds out in the next 6 weeks whether he gets his first 2-year contract. So then he'll start his stage 1. But if he gets released, I understand if he misses a year of academy football, that's going to have a massive difference. But the mental health side of things, and psychologically, I don't want to put him through, right, you've just been released from QPR, we're now going to go to Brentford, Reading, Leyton Orient, AFC Wimbledon, we're going to try that route, because if it works, great. But if it doesn't work, and as a parent, I always plan worst case scenario. I don't want to put Theo in that environment. So I would want him to go grassroots for 6 months. Hopefully he stands out, and then we try it again if the opportunity is there.
And sorry, Matthew, you might want to jump in a sec, but I just want to say one more point, because I'm going to like contradict myself one more time. I'm thinking about Nathan Mariah Welsh. So yeah, we both coached him when he was little, Matthew. Like, he was a really, really good under-8s player, ended up signing for Chelsea, got released by Chelsea under 10s, went into Brentford's academy program, all the way up until Brentford shut down their academy. Then he like started doing some showcase games for women footballers around the sort of same time as like Michael Elise. He bounced around a few clubs. I think, I mean, he's ended up becoming a professional footballer, and I think he might have ended up being at like maybe 8 clubs.
Barry
Eze,
Ev's done the exact same. Obviously there's going to be...
Well, I was going to say though, I think for Nathan, he was a relatively like bright boy, but I don't know. I mean, I don't want to just stick on like Nathan, but like for some kids' situation might be, they might not have the best GCSE level. Like some people might not have other options. It might be best to just pursue professional football, and non-league thing is like really good and it just works for their situation. But there might be others. I'm thinking of Nicholas that went to a private school. You actually coached him, Danny. Nicholas Osborne. Nicky Osborne.
Bad with names.
Okay.
Bad with names.
So yeah, super bright boy. Yeah, like I said, going to a private school, the family spending so much on that education, but then I think he was like pursuing professional football, and I think like, you know what, getting released, you don't need to do that. Like you're getting so much education. I think that's where
it's the support from the parents though. Yeah, if the parents are pushing we can still make it, or you can still make it, then it's really difficult. And I've an example at one of the, I've seen the worst that can happen with a player that doesn't make it, has been in an academy for 9 years, gets a scholar, cannot get a pro, and has gone on trial, and then, has tried to commit suicide.
Oh,
so I have seen, and I have seen it, and this is an 18-year-old, maybe 19-year-old. He didn't get a pro, and then went on trial at all of these other clubs. And this is what your child has been known. If your child is lucky enough to be in an academy, you're telling everyone this is the footballer. The child is known as a footballer.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going for 6, 7, 8 years as a footballer. How have you got on today? You're putting all this stuff on social media. They're just known as a footballer. So then when they get released, then it's a slap in the face. And then if they can't find another club, it's just this child that is only known as a football player now is, So it's kind of just as a parent, if you can just take into, obviously you're thinking about your child's welfare.
But if you can get to that age where they get to like 16, and then you can just get them out to a really good university in America, and then they're then kind of like got direction, because that age of like 15, 16, teenagers, like they want direction. They need, if you don't have, I mean, we're talking there about like someone that's, like having like that mental health problem, like, getting like suicide, but like it's important to give people purpose and direction and a plan, because if they're doing that, then they're going to be like up in the mornings, they're going to be caring about their physical appearance, they're going to be like looking after their health because they've got direction and a plan. So sometimes maybe even as a parent, you're thinking, all right, well, fair enough, my kid's not going to be a footballer, but I'm happy that they're not you know, drinking and you're with bad crowd and they've got a bit of a plan. I think that can be really positive as well as they navigate, because once they find their way, but it's important to navigate through those years of 16, 17, 18, which are transitional years for kids.
It's,
Go on, Matthew, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. There's a lot there. I found myself listening a little bit more in this one. There's a lot there, isn't there? It's just like, how much do you want to support them as a parent? How much do you want to support your child to chase their dream? Then when do you start to realize that maybe the dream is unattainable and we need to change that dream? And then how do you go about trying to, again, I kind of go back to my phrase of fulfilling your potential.
Sorry, Matt.
I was going to say, like, we've probably not answered much because there's just so much to it. But one standout thing I would say is, I think you mentioned it earlier, I think you both mentioned it, the parent needing to be honest with themselves and understanding their child's ability and level, and realizing that if they do want them to fulfill their potential, there is a way to go about it. And there's this trend of trying to take certain players and make them something that they're not. Like if your son or daughter at the moment is slower but has amazing vision and intelligence, then don't try to make them an amazing dribbler in the next 6 months. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, longer term, you can always work on the dribbling and the speed stuff in the background, but understand that that's not going to be what helps you getting into an academy or helps you play at the highest level you can at that moment. I think that's a very, very big mistake at the moment with a lot of parents, just trying to force themselves and force their kids, basically, a lot of the time, just trying to make them more athletic a lot quicker so they can get seen. But they need to realize that at a younger age, the athleticism largely comes from genetics. So yes, still work on it, but know it's a longer term goal, and then realize that there are other strengths that they can use to really stand out.
There's one of the comments here is, do you think social media fuels the dream more for kids? I would love this we don't have long enough as kids on social media. I would love this to be a topic another week about kids on social media, because it's Marmite. And yeah, that is a conversation that we definitely need to discuss and help educate parents just to see another side of things, the pros and the cons. But yeah, children, social media, whatever account whoever it's managed by, that needs to be a topic for conversation. Yeah. I'd love that to be next week.
Sorry, the other one on I did listen to you, Dan, but sorry, it's going back to me for a second. That definitely is next week's topic, though, social media, because that's, yeah, I can rant about that one. But the other one that I'm sure we've both seen is parents not being honest with themselves in terms of, you know, being able to look at their child with an unbiased view. But then coaches as well. Like, there are some incredible coaches, but we've both come across the coaches that can hype a player up. Like, I've worked with players and they've come to me with a sense of like arrogance. And I say to them, oh, who do you play for? And it's a grassroots club. It's like, oh, so you're not one of the best players at Chelsea because that's how you're behaving and acting. And then you speak to the parents and they say, oh no, his coach from this team says he's brilliant and he says he's this and he's that. Like, I think there's a very fine balance between coaches and parents encouraging like their kids and trying to build their confidence, but still being realistic with it as well and keeping them grounded.
No, it's been an emotional episode. I feel, Dan, like, you know, when you were just saying there about, yeah, I think, yeah, that kind of got to me a bit. So yeah, no, I hope that's helped. You know, I think, like, yeah, I've enjoyed the conversation. I feel like through speaking it out loud, I think, yeah, I've developed some thoughts on this subject. Like, you know, I've contradicted myself a few times as we've been speaking. So not out here, like Dan always repeats it over and over. We're not saying like we have definitive answers, but we're just like for me personally anyway, like where I feel like my thoughts are and my views are in this moment, they can still change and evolve over time. But yeah, I've kind of like given my reaction into this stuff like on this subject this evening. So yeah, hopefully it has helped people.
Well, can I just throw something at you, Tony, with then? Because you've got
Yep.
Theo, who's in this prime age for everything that's going on. Has Theo kind of got a dream of playing for a club, and then depending on what happens, have you got an idea of how you then sort of manage that dream?
I've done it very different with Theo. I've been very relaxed with him. Don't get me wrong, I want to push him as much as I can, and I want him to make it. I want him to get a 2-year contract and then a scholarship, but I've just let him do whatever he wants to do. And he doesn't want to do extra training. He doesn't want to do the extra bits. Theo's an under 12 at QPR. He doesn't want to do the extra bits. And part of me is happy because I just want to be his dad. I just want him to enjoy it. But then the coach in me, and everyone thinks because of the players that I work with and my job, that he would just be football. And that part of me wants to push him because I know what he has to work on. I know he needs that hunger. He needs the appetite. But he does want to make it. He does want to be a football player. He does want to be a footballer, but he knows he's not doing anything extra for it. Compared to, and he spoke with some of the players that I've worked with, and one of the boys that I've got is 16 years old and is training with us. He's training at I just said it right. He's training with the first team at Arsenal, and he's 16 years old, and his dad would work him and look at the level that he's at, whereas I'm being more relaxed. And I'm in that difficult situation at the moment where I don't want to be a pushy dad because I know football's my job. I don't love it, but football's my job, and I just want him to enjoy it. So we did
the podcast with Frank Lampard on Thursday this week, and it was an unbelievable episode. And he's been very public about how brutal his dad was with him. He talked about like the hours and hours and hours and hours in a practice. I mean, like all the footballers that he was coming up with around that time with West Ham, Rio Ferdinand, Jermaine Defoe, Michael Carrick, Joe Cole, like it was unbelievable who was coming through. But he has always been the hardest working player. And I said to him that you scored 41 goals outside the box. You hold the record for most goals in the Premier League for outside the box. And I was saying, why are you laughing, Matthew? Why are you laughing?
Did you watch all the goals?
I actually did watch all the goals, yeah. 211 goals for Chelsea, and I watched them all in half an hour. I do a lot of research with episodes. But yeah, so I was like, how does that happen? How do you end up doing that? Like, and then he was like, practice. And then he was just going through the whole episode talking about the hours and hours and hours of practice that he would do, and then talking about his mindset that he had that would make him practice that much so that when he would get those chances, he would give himself the best chance to score. And it became a bit like cheat code where like, yeah, he'd be receiving the ball off a wide player, he would know exactly the touch he would take, and he'd be able to shoot. And he'd done the repetitions so many times that he just knew he was going to score. And we got him even to have a football and a football boot and show us like how he hits the ball. It's going to be a really, really good episode. But yeah, just in terms of like what you're talking about there, about the amount of hours of practice required to be a footballer, like I mean, I think it ends up coming through in your results, like how much practice you want to do and of the right practice. Obviously, his dad was a footballer and he was getting loads of good information. So I think that is also a factor as well.
So if a player
I need to take my mum to Mother's Day. Like it's dinner. I was meant to go for a meal this evening. I'm not trying to get off, but I'm going to be late for the meal.
To be continued.
Cheers, guys.
To continue. Nice one. Well done, guys. See you. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.